back into fish. Now, listen, although I'm always going to be a reptile guy, and that's where my heart is, the fact is that I've always loved fish. When I was younger, I worked at a fish store, and I also kept a lot of fish at home when I was younger. Now, over the last 25 years or so, I haven't really been in the fish hobby at all or anything like that. But right now, we have a place called the Reptarium. It's a reptile zoo in Utica, Michigan, and it's been open for 4 years now. And it's a really, really fun place. It's an interactive reptile zoo where people like you guys can come and actually hold reptiles, feed, monitor lizards, feed alligators, all kinds of different stuff like that. It's really, really fun. But we are actually expanding, and we're opening up public aquarium as well. And so we're super excited about the fact that we can start branching into reptiles and fish, and a few mammals as well. For those of you guys that don't know, we do have a sloth, a two-toed sloth named Drogo, and we have an armadillo named Brillo the armadillo, who is really fun. So we're going to add a couple more mammals as well. So you have an opportunity to meet mammals, you'll have an opportunity to meet reptiles, and then we'll have this really cool, as interactive fish thing as we possibly can. So again, you can't really play and cuddle with fish, but you can swim with stingrays, and that's one of the things that we're going to offer in Utica, Michigan, is we're going to have cow nose and bat rays in a giant, probably 24,000 gallon enclosure, and you'll be able to actually snorkel with them, which will be cool. We'll have touch tanks. We'll have arapaima where you can feed arapaima. So we're going to get into the fish stuff, and I always say that, I've always loved animals, right? Animals have been my thing since I was literally 2 years old. But I always had an affinity towards reptiles. Reptiles were my thing. When I was a kid, I used to literally, spend my entire summers in the woods catching snakes. All my friends were doing other things, and I was like, I need to go catch snakes. And so I was really into it. So I always knew I was going to spend my life around that. But I didn't really know what that meant, right? Especially back then, there wasn't like reptile breeders. You guys may or may not know this, but right now the biggest reptile show in the country is happening in Tinley Park, which is only 30 minutes away from here. So yesterday I was at Tinley Park doing reptile stuff. Today I'm here messing with fish stuff. There wasn't that type of thing when I was a kid, right? So really, as a reptile guy, and going when I was 10, 11, 12, and telling everyone hey, I just want to work with reptiles the rest of my life. What are you going to do? You're either going to maybe be a veterinarian, which even that opportunity wasn't that great because not a lot of people are keeping reptiles, so you'd probably be out of business pretty quick. 2, you could work at a zoo, which was a big thing I thought I'd probably do, to be totally honest with you. I thought that I'd probably, go through school, and I did, go into biology, and I thought I'd probably eventually work at a reptile zoo, or not a reptile zoo, but a zoo in the reptile department. Or you could, maybe do field biology work, which again, but, as life kind of went on, I realized that I could, breed reptiles. That was the first thing that I did, was I got into breeding reptiles. That was back in 1989. I started my business, BHB Reptiles, and that was a fledgling business at the time. Hardly anyone kept reptiles. When you went to a pet shop, hardly anyone actually had reptiles. So it was not like this huge, wow, this is going to be a booming business. And I was really fortunate to be on the front end of it, right? So just about the time that I started breeding reptiles, when I was 17 years old, and by the way, I always tell people a story, I really started breeding when I was 15 years old, but when I was 17, I started my business, and I actually bred albino Burmese pythons. Now, they're the giant snakes, right? Giant albino Burmese pythons, but they're really the first investment quality reptile that actually was ever out there. And what ended up happening was when I was 17, when I was younger than that, I bought a pair, and it was really smart of me because, it turned out to be smart, but didn't seem like at the time. I somehow convinced my mom to spend all the money I'd saved my whole life, working at the pet shop, paper routes, birthdays, all the other types of things, on a pair of snakes. And I bought a pair of albino Burmese pythons for $3,200 when I was 15 years old. And so, but when I was 17, I actually made $40,000 breeding these albino Burmese pythons. And so here I was, 17 years old. I started my business, BHP Reptiles, and I was like, hey, I always wanted to work with reptiles my whole life. I think I've found the direction that I want to go. And I can breed reptiles. And again, there was, at that time, there wasn't one professional reptile breeder in the world, right? There wasn't one person that actually bred reptiles for a living. You know, there were people that did it kind of in the closet type of thing, like, yeah, I bred some reptiles. And it was usually like you traded, you know, like, hey, I've got this corn snake, I'll buy this, that, whatever the case is. But now all of a sudden, right around 1989, it became like people were spending money, right, on reptiles. And so we started buying more expensive reptiles and breeding more expensive reptiles. And before you knew it, I went to college, and before you knew it, by the time I was in my second year of college, I was making way more money breeding reptiles than I could ever do with any other career path that I wanted to do working with animals. And I was like, let's just go with this, right? You know, let's just breed reptiles. That sounds great. And really, for 25 years, that was basically all I did. You know, I did a lot of traveling around the world, doing different types of things. But for 25 years, my main business was just working with reptiles and breeding them and selling them. And we ended up growing to having the third largest reptile collection in the entire country, about 30,000 snakes we had at one point. But the truth was, I still had that kind of desire to really do something different than just like breed reptiles. I mean, because, you know, little Brian didn't think breeding reptiles was what he wanted to do. He just wanted to work with reptiles and animals, right? And so I still had this like passion to work with lots of different animals and educate people and get people excited about the animals that I love so very dearly. In this case was reptiles. So right about, a weird thing kind of changed my life. It was obviously a tragedy for someone like me, is Steve Irwin died, right? You know, Steve was a huge hero to me. As a matter of fact, not to go off on a different tangent, but just got a text message from Steve's dad this morning, which is awesome. Whenever you hear from Steve Irwin's dad, it's always a good day. And I'm going to be going down and visiting. He's become a very dear friend of mine, and I try to go see him as much as I can, so I'll be down there in March staying with him. But when Steve passed away, I never had met Steve. I met Steve's dad after Steve had passed, unfortunately, and became friends with him. But when Steve passed, you know, I started thinking like, you know, and YouTube was like in its infancy, right? I mean, YouTube was like 2006, just got going. This was about 2007 when Steve passed away, and I thought, you know, maybe I'll start a YouTube channel and just like not try to be Steve Irwin, because I always tell people, whenever anyone says you're the next Steve Irwin, I'm like, there's never going to be a next Steve Irwin. You know, Steve Irwin was a legend and is a legend and will always be a legend, right? But I thought, like, maybe I could just, you know, like, I love the fact that, you know, I always tell people, when you go into like a toy store and there's a stuffed animal alligator or crocodile, that's because of Steve Irwin, right? You know, because before Steve, they didn't sell crocodile pets. You know what I mean? It's like, or not pets, but, you know, plushies and stuff like that. People love crocodiles because Steve became so passionate about them, and his passion for crocodiles made other people love them. And that's all I wanted to do, right? I wanted people to love the things I did, which I still love crocodilians and all reptiles, but mine was more snakes, right? Like, I wanted people to love snakes like I love snakes, because I think they're so misunderstood. And I mean, I've talked to people even today that have expressed interest, like, I'm scared of snakes. And I'm like, that's because you don't understand snakes. You know what I mean? You know, I always say the opposite of fear is knowledge. The more knowledge we get of something, the less we fear of it. And so sure enough, around 2007, 2008, I started a YouTube channel. And you know, at the time, you know, I never thought it was going to take off. I never thought it was going to do anything. And for many years, it didn't really, to be honest with you. Like, I was making videos once a week, and I, you know, I mean, people were watching. It was pretty good. It wasn't bad, but I wasn't like, there was no money to be made in YouTube. You know, social media influencing wasn't like a business or anything like that for the first 7 or 8 years. I was making, it was actually almost costing me money to do it, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I loved doing it. I fell in love with the process, right? I fell in love with like filming and coming up with ideas and then sharing it. And then I got kind of obsessed with like reading people's comments and commenting back and growing an audience. And then, you know, about 6 or 7 years ago, a lot of things changed. You know, like YouTube became really much more mainstream. All of a sudden, there was money to be made in YouTube. I started taking YouTube a lot more seriously. We went from posting 1 video a week to posting videos 7 days a week. And we went from, you know, well, I started the second channel. We went from 0 to 1 million subscribers in a year. You know, thank you. And now we're just shy of 4 million subscribers on our main channel, and we have a couple other channels as well. But now it's so cool because we can, you know, every day we can tell a story about something that we're really passionate about, right? You know, whether it's hatching snakes or coming to Aquashella or going to Tinley Park Reptile Show or whatever the case is. And it's also afforded me the opportunity to, again, like I had mentioned, travel around the world and do amazing animal adventures, you know, all over Africa, Asia, Australia, you know, Japan. I mean, you name it. We've been all over the place and been able to share those experiences with our audience, which is really, really fun, and it's such a blessing, right? You know, I mean, I never take anything we do for granted. You know, I mean, the fact that I'm just that little kid that loved to hang out in the woods, catching snakes, and now here I am talking to you guys and being able to live the life I live is pretty special. And like I said, the next iteration, as I was growing through that, was going back to what that little kid wanted to do, right? Which was really like own his own reptile zoo. You know what I mean? Like that's what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted people to come to my place and have an experience. And so 5 years ago, I started the idea of the Reptarium in Utica, Michigan, and you know, I remember talking to a lot of my like kind of money friends, you know, guys that have a lot of money, rich people, and I remember like pitching all these ideas, like, hey, what do you think about this, and what do you think about that? And whenever I would talk about the reptile zoo, every single one of them would say, well, you know what, I think you should do that if you don't mind losing the money. You know, it's okay. It's going to cost you $500,000 to open up a smaller reptile zoo. But you're going to never make that money back. It's just a complete waste of money, right? And so I just believed them. Like, I guess it is a waste of money, but I loved it so much. I was like, I'm doing it. I don't care if I'm wasting my money. This is my passion. Now, I remember when we built a small part, and then 2 years later we expanded, we doubled it, so it's a much bigger place now. But I remember the day we opened, literally thinking like there'd be like 4 people would walk in the door. And like then they'd walk around and then they'd leave, and then there'd be 20 minutes before the next 4 people would walk in, and then we'd be lucky during the night to have 20 people show up. And I remember the day we opened up, which was actually September 13th, 4 years ago, and there was like a line of like 200 people. And it was like, what in the hell is this, man? Like, it just completely took me off guard, you know? And literally from the day we opened up, it was always packed. It was just packed, you know, up until COVID, right? And so then to make, you know, matters worse is that we were doing so well, we decided to double the amount of space, right? So we bought out the rest of the building, and we put another $500,000 into an expansion, and we opened up, we opened up on a Friday in 2020, March 13th, ironically enough, this is 13th both times. It was, by the way, Friday the 13th too. I should have known never to do that. March 13th, 2020, we probably all know what happened March 16th, 2020, right? The world shut down. So I was open for 3 days at the new Reptarium, and it was crazy, by the way. But looking back, I think like it was so wild because, like, as a matter of fact, there was the same week at Tinley Park, the big reptile show was actually happening. It happens twice a year, in October and in March, right? And so it was happening, and what happened was people were flying into Tinley, landing to hear that Tinley shut down because of COVID. So everyone was like driving to my place from Chicago. So we had like 1,200 people in my reptile zoo. Like, you know, we're all like partying, hugging, you know, kissing or whatever we did, whatever. I didn't kiss anybody, but regardless. And here this pandemic has started, right? You know, and we were like the super spreader before the super spreader was a thing. But we had a great weekend. It was absolutely amazing with all the animals and people, and we had such a blast. And then, of course, Monday morning, the harsh reality hit us that we had to shut the reptile zoo down. And it was definitely difficult to spend that kind of money, and not even the money didn't even matter. It was more about, like, I was so excited to share this new reptile zoo with everybody. Uh-oh, we got Jay coming up here. Uh-oh, we got Mike coming up here too. You guys give Jay and Mike a big round of applause.
We just wanted to come and see you for a second.
Did you miss me?
We did.
We always miss you, Mr. Bryan.
Look at that. So we got an anaconda here, absolutely beautiful. This is awesome, man. Nebula. Meet Nebula, guys. And then, of course, we have an albino Burmese. Do you know this?
Cuddles.
Cuddles, yeah. Yeah, it likes to cuddle with you at night. Don't ever let a snake, what happens when a snake sleeps with you? It sizes you up, and then it eats you in the morning. Yeah, no, it's totally true. Thanks, guys. Love you guys. Bye. I can't. So I'm very lucky to be blessed with these guys in my life and part of my crew and stuff like that. There's never a dull moment in my life, but like I said, it wasn't really about the money. It was about the fact that I wanted to share all the stuff that we had done for this new reptile zoo. And I had to wait 4 months of being closed before we could do it again. And then, but we did open up 4 months later, and it went really great. Again, a little bit different system. Rather than having 1,200 people in our place, we started to, because of COVID, we started to limit the numbers per hour to our place. So now we're pretty much almost always sold out, right? There's very seldom times you can buy a ticket the week of, because we're almost always sold out, which is really a blessing. So now, in my ultimate wisdom of never being able to rest and never being able to stop, I've decided, let's go bigger, right? Let's go bigger. And so the next thing to do is, thankfully, our building is here. Right across the street, there was a grocery store, right, that moved, and we got that building. And that's why we're now expanding the reptile zoo. We're going to move across the street with the reptiles, and then we're going to add a public aquarium. And again, like I had mentioned, we're going to be as interactive as we possibly can, much like for anyone that's been to the Reptarium, I don't know if anyone has. If you haven't, please come if you can. It's interactive. I mean, you hold big snakes like that. You can, feed alligators. You can feed big lizards. You can feed tortoises. You can meet the sloth. You can play with the armadillo. And we're going to do that exact same thing with the aquarium, as much as we possibly can interactive. So, the problem I've always said as a guy, right, is I'm lucky. I get to travel around to zoos and places all over the world, and because I have a stupid YouTube channel, I get to do things that people can't do, right? People are like, oh yeah, you want to get in with the cheetahs? Sure, go play with the cheetahs, Most people can't do that. Well, that bothers me from the standpoint, like, I want you guys to be able to play with cheetahs too. Not that we're going to have cheetahs, guys, but I do want people to be able to do the things that I get to do every day, right? Every day I get to play with giant snakes. I get to play with alligators and crocodiles, and I get to do so many cool things. I get to play with my sloth, and I get to do all kinds of stuff. I want to be able to allow other people to do that stuff. So that's the vision of what this expansion is going to be, right? Is we're gonna have as much interaction as possible. So with any luck, September 1st, 2023, we will be open at our new place, and it's going to be absolutely ridiculous. And so now I'm geeking out on fish, right? Like I'm just like I'm like, I've spent 35, 40 years, every day of my life, every day of my life, working with reptiles, right? And learning as much as I can. And listen, I still learn every day. Every day I learn something new about reptiles. I'm by far not an expert. As a matter of fact, you wouldn't want to watch that. It's going to be a horrible talk.
12 p.m. If you haven't got your raffle tickets yet, make sure to get your raffle tickets. Raffles in the back by the main stage. You definitely want to get into all those prizes. You do have to be here to win, so be sure to be here.
I wonder if they thought that out very well.
Official Aquashella swag. Be sure to get up to the swag booth and get your official Aquashella 2022 swag and collectibles.
That was funny. They probably didn't think that went through very well. So anyways, that's my life, and I'm super excited about fish now because I'm learning so much, and that's the thing, right? Is like that's what keeps you young. That's what keeps you excited about life. Is like learning, absorbing knowledge, right? And so I get, listen, I am like so terrible with fish. I'll just get a drink.
And want some free rocks? I have piles of rocks to give away. I know if you were just up here for the saltwater skate off, you might have gotten one. But if you want some more, come back to the contest stage and receive free rocks.
Okay, God.
Compliment to Marco Rocks.
What else?
The winner and world champion of the saltwater skate off.
Yeehaw. All right. All right. But like I said, I think it's cool that, I've got so much more to learn. But in the last 6 months, I have dove into fish like you can't believe, you know? Like, I mean, I didn't even know what a skimmer was 6 months ago. Like, when I'm talking to people, and like, oh, you're going to need this. And I'm trying to open up a multi-million-dollar aquarium, you know? I mean, we're talking like $5 million is probably going to be what we end up spending on this aquarium. And I don't even know what a skimmer is or what it does, right? So I've learned so much, but the truth is that I can't do it on my own. I'm going to be bringing on great people that are, you know a lot more than I do, and I'll be learning along the way. But that's keeping me super, super pumped, right? Like, I'm super excited because every day I'm learning so much about something that's going to be so passionate. And, you know, I think that when you're trying to fulfill your dreams, which I'm a big guy, like, not only do I want people to love reptiles and fish and everything, all the other animals, but I want people to follow their dreams, man. Because, listen, I'm just a guy, a long-haired, ponytailed guy that just followed his dreams, right? And I've been able to achieve so much stuff that's so incredible. And I want to inspire people to do that, right? And so it's the story is crazy because I think it's wild that little Brian that ran around in the woods catching snakes, all these years later now owns a reptile zoo, about to own a public aquarium, and that'll have hundreds of thousands of people a year that come to it. And the whole point is that, like, anyone can do it if I can do it. Anybody, because I'm nothing special. I'm just a guy that's so passionate about things and so excited about it and I don't stop. You know, that's the thing that I always want to encourage people. Like, if you have a dream, like you want to open up a pet shop, you want to open up a fish store, you want to do what, you know, breed snakes or whatever it is, like, don't let anyone tell you can't. Because that's the one constant in my life over the last 35 years is everybody always told me I could never do it. And right now, a lot of people are telling me the public aquarium's never going to be able to be happen. And I'm going to prove everybody wrong, because it's like, hey, listen, you know, no one can tell you not to do it. If you're passionate enough, work hard enough, and believe hard enough in it, you can make anything happen. And that's really the biggest part of what I like to try to preach, right? Is that, you know, be smart. Don't be stupid. You know, I tell people all the time, if you want to work with animals full time, you know, do it slowly. Don't quit your day job and just jump in, because it's a hard life, right? Like, you have to work hard. You got to remember, the first many years of my life, I was broke as could be, or every dollar I made, I'd make $100 grand and I'd spend 105 on my business, right? And I would, you know, I mean, it was definitely a hard road. But it's so worth it when you get to where you want to be, because even though I work harder, that anyone that hangs out with me knows, like, you spend 2 or 3 days with me and you're like, this guy, like, does not stop. You know what I mean? It's like I work from morning until night. Like tonight, I literally have a podcast back in Michigan at 9 o'clock I have to do. So I have to be back in Michigan, a 5-hour drive, to do a podcast at 9 o'clock that goes till about 11:30. So I mean, like, that's every day of my life is like that. But when you love what you do, it doesn't matter. You don't care, right? You don't care about it. Like, I never wake up in the morning and dread my life, right? I wake up every morning and think I get to work with cool animals every single day and get to see amazing things every single day. So regardless, I always encourage you guys to follow that dream and be passionate, whether it is fish or whether it is reptiles or whether it's other animals, you know, or whatever it is in your life. You know, make sure that you're following your dreams and be passionate, because that old saying of, you know, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life is so true, you know. But let me ask you guys, like I mentioned when you guys first showed up, I'm going to have you guys ask me some questions so that I just rambled for 30 minutes or something like that about stuff that you may or may not be interested in. I want to hear what you guys want to know. I mean, some of you guys hopefully know who I am. Some of you guys maybe don't. If you're curious about what it's like to live that life, whether it's YouTuber, as a matter of fact, my crew now makes fun of me and calls me a TikToker instead of a YouTuber. I always call myself a YouTuber, but now about 50% of the people that I run into out in the wild, as I call it, they recognize me from TikTok. So I think it's kind of, and they make fun of me all the time. So whether you have questions about social media, questions about animals, something like that, I'd love to hear what you guys may want to hear about, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Anyone want to take the first one? Right up here. So the question was, am I going to keep the original Reptarium open or move everything across the street and do one big thing? It's a great question. What we're going to do, the plan is right now, is to build all new enclosures for the new place, right? It'll be bigger enclosures for reptiles, more extensive, and then add on some mammals, and then the aquarium, the public aquarium. And then the plan is to keep all of the enclosures at the old Reptarium. Keep that building. But most of the animals, 90% of the animals will move across the street, right? So all my, Perdita, Ivy, Bella, Diddy, Dixie, Salt, Pepper, all these animals, my animal ambassadors, will go across the street, and all the ones that everyone knows and follows online will actually be at the new place. That being said, I have a lot of animals that aren't on exhibit that I don't show as much and stuff like that. Those animals will move into the old Reptarium enclosures, and we'll have that not open to the public, but it will be there for private events, right? So that way, right now, for those who don't know, my reptile zoo is open 3 days a week, 5 hours a day. So it's only 15 hours a week. That's all we're open. Beyond that, we do private events, birthday parties, school events, so on like that, right? So what we're going to do now is across the street, we'll be open 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. Right? So if someone wants a private tour or a private birthday party, a private event, and don't want to be around public, they could do it at the old Reptarium, right? So we'll have a private area and a public area. Now, you could still do a private tour, or you could do a birthday party when we're open at the new place. There'll be more stuff. There'll be the aquarium and more mammals and all that type of stuff. But some people don't like that, right? They're going to be like, hey, listen, I'd rather have a private area where no one is. So we're going to keep the old place, move the animals over, replenish the animals, and then also it gives me an opportunity. Sorry, guys.
There's a couple boxes up here on the contest stage. Feel free to help yourself. Margot Rock for free up here on the contest stage.
So we'll also it gives me an opportunity to have a place to film when there's not a lot of people. It does get difficult. Like on the weekends when I film, it's really difficult at the Reptarium because we're packed. Even though we're only open 5 hours, the mornings are packed with private events, school events, birthday parties, stuff like that. So this will give me kind of a private area that I can film at every single day and not have to be around a ton of people when I'm filming, because it gets a little bit difficult. So, but good question. Next. Yes, sir. So the question was a big paludarium. What would you suggest? Are you talking materials, or are you talking just in general? Animals. Okay, animals. Gotcha. So I think that it is difficult, right? And paludariums have become super popular, right? That way you can keep fish on the bottom, and you can keep, it's basically almost like 3 levels almost. It's like fish, maybe ground level, and then maybe a boreal, something on that lines. And so it's easy when you do stuff like we have some paludariums that are like frogs, right? So that way we can keep fish in the bottom. We can keep frogs that will sometimes be on the ground, sometimes be, climbing up. Those are real simple. It's a little bit more difficult when you get into, like, say, snakes and lizards, because some of those snakes and lizards will eat fish, right? And so you have to be careful of that. But so I think frogs are the best way to go. And then beyond that, you start getting into stuff like, you can get into, say, like the fruiting lizards, like the Rhacodactylus, like lychee geckos, gargo geckos, crescent geckos. You can build a paludarium there because they're not going to eat fish, right? And the humidity is actually good for them as well. They need about the same temperatures and everything else for fish as those. So I think like the geckos like that, day geckos, those all work in paludariums. Snakes are difficult. There's not a lot of snakes you can do because most snakes will at least one of 2 things. They're going to either eat the fish, or they're going to poop in the water and make a lot of ammonia and kill your fish, right? So I think that paludariums with frogs and geckos, really good. Other than that, it gets a little bit tricky. Yeah, but you can do really cool stuff. We have a few really cool paludariums, and we're definitely going to make more in the expansion, because I think that's like, so the fish industry, the thing I think that's interesting about the fish industry is that, you guys are still like light years ahead of where the reptile hobby is when it comes to scaping, right? Like, reptile people, and I don't like this about reptile people, to be honest with you, is that, we'll spend $5,000 on a snake and then throw it in a $25 plastic bin. Whereas fish people will spend $5,000 on an aquarium and then put a $20 fish in it, right? So I'm hoping that like the reptile world will evolve more into what the fish world is, where we put more value in enclosures as we do the actual animal itself. And paludariums is another really great option for that, So, and that's one of the things we're trying to do a lot now is build like these really beautiful naturalistic enclosures so the animals are as close to the nature as they can possibly get and happy, right? We want happy reptiles because it's important for our animals for sure. But that's a great question. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, sir. You're gonna have to scream. So yeah, it's, bioactive compared to aquatic, I think again there's a lot of similarities, right? And I think that bioactive is like the next big phase in reptile keeping, to be honest with you. I really think we do a lot of bioactive enclosures. Bioactive is basically what you basically have is you have like almost like a filter system inside your enclosure. The only difference between say fish and bioactive is that like our carbon for fish is basically feeder bugs, right? So you have feeder insects that are eating the waste debris, right? Whereas in filtration you have carbon and other floss material and bio balls or whatever the case is that are breaking down bacteria. In a bioactive enclosure, you actually have bugs that are like isopods, spring tails and stuff like that that are eating the organic waste. So there's a lot of similarities between bioactive and filters, right? If you look at the different levels of filtration in aquatic, and then you look at the different levels in bioactive, it's almost exactly the same. It's just different things, right? Like cocoa fiber is compared to whatever, so on like that. And but again, I think that the next phase of keeping reptiles is that. Right? I mean, we're always going to have the minimalistics. And this is the thing, like breeding snakes, it's difficult, right? Because you can't really go like we have a bioactive room for New Caledonians, crescent geckos, chahua geckos, gargo geckos, lychee geckos. And it costs a ton to breed reptiles that way, and I can't keep up breeding from a cost standpoint to someone that's keeping them minimalistic, right? They're going to be able to sell their animals way cheaper. I always say it's like analogous to say free-range beef and commercially farmed beef, right? It's like we all want free-range beef, but are we willing to pay for free-range beef? Probably not, which is a bummer, right? We should. I mean, that should be what we should do. And it's the same thing with commercial reptile breeding. When you produce a leopard gecko for $7 in a minimalistic tub, whereas I'm going to do a bioactive, it's going to cost me $30 to produce the same gecko, right? So there'll always be the minimalistic reptile breeders that supply the pet trade, but I think that the next phase of reptile keeping is more bioactive, naturalistic, awesome enclosures, paludariums, stuff like that. And I'm excited to hopefully lead that charge, right? Like I'm trying to get people psyched on that type of keeping because I will tell you this, as a guy that kept things minimalistic and still do, by the way, I'm hopefully getting away from minimalistic keeping in the next 2-3 years. I'm slowly moving away from it, but I've definitely, all my energy is going into more naturalistic, right? But as a guy that's done both, I'm telling you, seriously, not every snake, like ball pythons love minimalistic, right? But when you get into reticulated pythons or so many of these other animals, I've seen them go from like minimalistic into big bioactive or big naturalistic enclosures. I've seen them change their personality. And I've seen them become different animals, right? And they're happier. They're more interested. They're active. They're really cool. So that's what I hope I can lead the phase of that next phase of keeping reptiles, which is more naturalistic for sure. And I think we'll catch up to the fish trade at some point for sure. At least I hope so. What else we got? Anyone else? Some deep questions? Okay, I've got another one. Go ahead. What's the predatory fish I'm most excited to have? To be honest with you, I love arapaima. That's like my thing. Like arapaima, to me, are the ultimate predator, freshwater predator fish, right? We know we have saltwater. That's a whole different thing. So we'll have like saltwater predator tank. We'll have, but I'm stoked on the freshwater predator tank, right? I mean, certainly I'll have arowana in there. I'll have red-tailed cats in there. I'll have alligator gars in there. You know, all that type of stuff. But the arapaima, that's it for me, man. That's like, to me, you know, the first time I was down at, I don't know if you guys know Rod from Predatory Fins, but first time I was down to visit Rod at Predatory Fins, now he's up in New York. He used to be down in Jupiter, Florida. I went and visited and I fed the arapaima. That was it. I was hooked. I was like, holy crap, that was the coolest experience. And that's what I'm saying. I want to let people be able to do that. You know what I mean? And it's not, you know, listen, we're not going to be able to have every person that walks through the door is going to feed an arapaima, obviously. Maybe 4 or 5 times a day they'll be able to feed the arapaima tank or something like that. But it's going to be cool. Like, it's like when we feed our alligators. We have a limited number. We can sell like, you know, 15 alligator feedings a day, basically, right? But it's not just that people that are feeding them that's cool. It's the people that are watching them feed them get an experience. So when you see an arapaima explode, like, boom, that is just crazy cool. So not only is the person that's doing it going to get this amazing experience, but all the people around that are watching are going to get to do it too. So yeah, there's hands down, you know, to me that's like the predator fish that is amazing. Is ironically enough, Josh and Big Rich, just today I'm buying an arapaima with them this week. So it'd be my first one, but they're keeping it with me. They're going to keep it for me until I have the aquarium ready. So that'll be my first arapaima, and I cannot wait. I'm going to go they're only 2.5 hours away from me, so I'm going to probably like every 2 weeks go there and go visit my arapaima. So yeah, I love it. I'm sorry? No, the king ones. It's a king arapaima.
No, they have one named Brutus.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not buying theirs. No, not theirs. No, they won't sell me theirs. I wish I would. I wish they would. They're jerks. No, I can't. I would steal theirs though, but they won't sell it to me. Maybe if they're not looking, I'll get it out the back door. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anybody else before I ramble about anything else? I don't know if what time have I got here? What time am I going till? 12:30. All right, so I've got about 13 more minutes to ramble here. So you guys, and I know some of you guys are probably here. Obviously we're behind in the talks a little bit. So some of you here might be here for the next talk, and you're like, "Who's this stupid reptile guy up here?" But obviously, I am a reptile guy. So I don't know. Anybody else with anything, or I'll just tell some other stories. I know you guys. All right, I appreciate that. Scream at me. Besides snakes, what's my favorite lizard to keep? I tell you what, I think that there's a lot of really cool lizards, right? So there's lizard species that would be smaller, like geckos and stuff like that. Leopard geckos are really great pet lizards. Obviously, you get into, like I said, the racodaclys stuff like lychees and stuff like that are really cool. But still, I think that oh man, it's so hard. There's 2 that come to mind that are really amazing. So I'm not going to give you the one. I'm going to give you the 2. And the one is definitely monitor lizards, right? And in particular, Asian water monitors. I've got a handful of Asians. I think I've got about 6 or 7 Asian water monitors, and they're all so amazing. I mean, they are like pet dinosaurs, right? I mean, they literally are like pet dinosaurs. And you take them out, they interact with you, super smart. You can do all kinds of stuff. What are you guys doing? Are you just going to listen to me? Oh, now the pressure's on. I got the crew with me. Now if I do something wrong, you guys get me some pizza? But anyways, monitor lizards are, again, so this is the thing. Reptiles are way, way, way more smart than we have ever given them credit for, right? When I was, even myself, up until 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I didn't think reptiles were as smart as they are. I'm seeing amazing things with these guys. I mean, they can learn so much, and they can tell the difference between different people. They can see color. They can, target train. You can, do all kinds of different stuff with them, and we're trying to even push it to the next level and see how far we can take their training. But again, there's nothing like a 6-foot, 50-pound monitor lizard dinosaur that walks around and has no fear of people and has no threat to people and are just absolutely amazing. So monitor lizards are one. And then I would be remiss if I didn't say my other favorite is rhino iguanas. And I tell people, really, my journey to the reptile zoo and all the behavior stuff that we've done at the Reptarium started with a rhino iguana, my girl Bella, right? And when I got Bella, that was the first time that I'd been working with reptiles for 30 years. And it was the first time that I realized you could create a relationship with a reptile, right? Like, you know, don't get me wrong, my snakes were great. And I still think sometimes snakes can know you, but it's hard to read what a snake does. You know what I mean? They can be super tame. They can like seem to like to handle, but you don't know. Are they really like? Do they know you? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's really hard to tell. But with a reptile, with a lizard. They're more expressive, right? You know, they can walk towards you, they can lean into a pet, they can close their eyes when you're petting them, all kinds of more humanistic, you know, type of things that we see. So, when Lori, my wife, bought me Bella, and I started messing with this rhino iguana, and I started to see that, like, she knew me. You know, she enjoyed my, you know, company. She would come to me when I called her. She'd sit on my lap. You know, the first night I ever had Bella, she slept under my pillow of my bed. She literally crawled under my pillow and slept under my pillow. And she's just amazing. And that made me go, wait a second. Maybe I've been thinking about reptiles all wrong. That they're these like kind of really more primitive / like instinctual only animals. I thought, wait a second. These things might actually think. And they might actually have a relationship with people. And that's what started the whole quest. So I don't even know I'd be where I am today with the Reptarium and all the animals that we have if it wasn't for that one lizard. That one lizard changed my life. And so rhino iguanas, and if anyone hasn't had an opportunity to play with a rhino iguana, you know, if you ever get a chance to, they're crazy. I mean, they're like little puppy dogs, but with scales. It's just absolutely amazing. And of course, we have Diddy and Dixie, our other rhino iguanas that were raised together. Same thing. And I always say Diddy and Dixie are my dogs, and Bella's my cat, right? Because Diddy and Dixie will come out every single time you open up the door. Come on, guys. They run out. They want to play. Bella, more like a cat, will like, you know, sometimes you open up a cage. Come on, Bella. And she gives you that look. You know the look. You know the cat look like, yeah, right. You're not good enough for me. You know, she thinks she's better than everybody. There's no doubt about that. She's got this pompous attitude, but she's an amazing animal, and I love her to death. She's still probably one of my favorite animals on the planet. And but rhino iguanas and monitor lizards are absolutely amazing. And if you haven't had a chance to interact with them, I can't tell you how cool they are. I mean, they are super, super cool. On a smaller level, like tegus are that way too. So if someone like can't keep a rhino iguana, they're a little bit more expensive. Plus, they're a little bit, you know, more whatever. As a matter of fact, if anyone wants to meet a tegu by chance, if you guys are here, I actually have a tegu over at Custom Cages. I'm happy to show you the tegu just to give you an idea how incredible they are. Really, really tame animals, super fun to play with, and just a really good animal ambassador to teach people that reptiles aren't scary, right? You know, and that's really important, and that's what we always strive for. Hey, Jay, Mike, do you have any questions for me? Because no one else has a question. Think of something really good. Mike, what's your name, sir? Mike? Okay, Mike. Oh, I talked about the expansion, man. You were late to the party. So if we're lucky, we're going to open up September 1st of 2023. That is what the goal is. It's going to be a lot of hard work. Yes, sir. You, the young man down in the front. Jay, how are you, Jay? Good. Where are you from? All right, what do you got, Jay? If I didn't work with reptiles, what plan would I have done with my life? I mean, I would. There is zero doubt in my mind that I would be working with an animal of some sort, period, right? I mean, whether it was reptiles or mammals or fish. You know, I loved marine biology when I was younger. I still love sharks. They're one of my favorite animals. I think I would be doing something with animals. There was never a backup plan, right? There was never like, maybe I'll go do. Do you have another question, sir? A band, yeah, yeah. That dream went. Yeah, that's right. I did play in a band when I was younger. That dream went away pretty quickly. We all grow up to want to be rock stars, right? But I would rather be in front of an awesome group of people like you guys than yeah. There you go, Jay. There you go. Lead the. No, I think we all, you always, as a kid, you always want to be a professional athlete or a rock star or something special, I'm assuming. But no, there was never a backup plan for me. Animals were going to be what I did, and they'll be what I do till the day I die. I always tell people, my retirement plan is when I'm getting buried. When someone's throwing dirt on top of my coffin, that's my retirement plan. I will never retire. I will never stop. I will never, I want to be that 95-year-old guy. These two guys are going to be running the shop by then. They'll be 75 years old. And I'll be in there every day harassing them about what they're doing, because I don't want to ever stop. This is what I love. And, yeah, as soon as they're good. I'm going into home real quick. My kids all tell me that. They can't wait to put me away. No, go ahead. How hard is it to keep the Gira Rufa fish alive in the pet spa? No, you can't answer that. They're a tough fish. They're tough fish. I mean, they're because they like to kill each other. Because they eat decaying matter, right? So we've been working on all kinds of different things. I know, I'll give you an example. The supplier that we get our Gira fish, and these are doctor fish, right? They're the fish spa fish that eat exfoliate the skin and stuff like that. The supplier we get it from supplies the San Diego Zoo too, and the San Diego Zoo goes through 3,000 a week. They have to replace 3,000 Gira a week. That's how quickly their attrition is on those things. Now, we don't have that type of attrition. Of course, we only keep about 200 Gira in our tanks. But I would say once every 6 weeks or so, we have to replace a bunch, because we'll go from 200 to 100, maybe 75 within about 6 weeks. And so we had a fish guy out that runs public aquariums out last week, a week and a half ago. And he gave us some tips how we could try. So there's this tricky thing, right? You have to feed them enough to where they don't want to kill each other, but you don't want to feed them so much that when someone sticks their feet in your fish spa, they don't want to eat the And that's what happened. We started feeding them a lot. And then when we started having people come for experiences, they put their feet in there. The fish would just be like, "No, that's all right. I'm full. I'm good." So it's this really, so we're trying to figure it out still. But again, when we get to the fish, before we put a drop of water in a tank, before we even bring a tank in, we're hiring a senior aquarist, with a marine biologist. So that person will be in charge. So right now we got a bunch of dopey reptile people trying to take care of fish, don't know what we're doing. We'll have an actual professional on staff, and I have a feeling that our Gira will actually do much better at the end of that experience. So, but regardless, guys, I just wanted to first off say thank you guys for the people that did come to see me. Thank you for the people that are here listening to me that want to see the next guy. And I appreciate you guys. Thanks to the fish world for opening your arms and allowing a reptile guy into the world. I'll be a bigger part of the fish world over the next 20 years of my life. So I think you haven't seen the last of me. And if you guys want to follow along on the journey of me building this aquarium and learning all the things, I'll be vlogging it every day on YouTube. So please follow along. And I just can't thank you enough for all of your attention over the last hour and stuff like that. I appreciate you. And like I said, if anyone wants to see a Tego, I'll be hanging out over here. And if anyone wants any questions with me privately, I'll be happy to answer after. All right? All right, guys. Thank you so much.